What's going on, everybody? I'm Brian from How to Automotive, and today I'm excited because I'm starting a paint project. So one of my goals is to restore this 1966 Corvette you see right here, but my skill level is not quite up to par. So to build up my skill and confidence to do paint and body work on the Corvette, I'm going to do a restoration on this gym locker here. So I converted this gym locker into my paint and body supply locker. I got my sandpapers, my paint supplies, my body fillers, that stuff. Buffing stuff, spray guns, all that stuff's in this locker. That locker used to look like this. So in this video, what we're going to do is we're going to restore this thing here, and it's going to be a learning process, and we're going to learn how to do some paint and body and learn how to build up our skills and confidence to tackle a job like this. So to work in this small shop and do car restorations like I got plans for back here, you need to be really organized. The project that we're going to be working on is this old gym locker here. This is something from like the 70s or early 80s gym locker. We're going to convert this into a place to store paints and sandpapers and that type of stuff, and keep everything organized so we can get the projects like this rolling. We're going to restore this and bring it back to life so we can use it to stay organized in the shop so we can get to the car restoration. All right, so this old gym locker was a rusty, crusty son of a gun right here. Here's one of the shelves that was in it. It's super rusty. All the brackets and mounting hardware fell off of it when I took it apart. So I literally had to fabricate a new shelf. This is it right here. So this was a pretty cool project for me, building out a shelf like that, learning and building my metal fabrication skills. So I was pretty proud of this one. So on this project, I wanted to keep it super simple and easy to do, and I wanted to make it where anybody could do this. So I reached out to Duplicolor, and they are kind enough to sponsor this video. So in this video, we're gonna be using Duplicolor paints, primers, and supplies to get this all restored and back together. So come with me, this is gonna be a fun little project. I like to thank them for sponsoring the video. And if you're doing a paint project, I highly recommend you checking out Duplicolor. I will leave links for it down in the description of the video. So now let's get back to the project. So like I said, one of the shelves was in really bad shape. So we got some sheet metal here. We created a template from the old shelf. Then I'll fold it up to match the shelf here. And then we'll, scuff all the edges up, prep it for paint, prime it, paint it, and throw the cabinet back together. So I use my benchtop bead roller to roll some beads in the shelf here to give it some strength. It takes out that Pepsi can wobble, and it dramatically stiffened the shelf up so we can put some weight on here and it's not gonna flex and bend on us. So since this was brand new sheet metal, I wiped it all down and wiped all the oily film off it. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take a red Scotch-Brite pad and scuff sand the whole thing and kind of give it a little roughness, a little texture. That way the paint and primers and stuff will adhere to the metal. It's super slick right now. Scuff it up and make it where the paint will stick to it. All right, now that I got it all scuffed up, I'll wipe it down with some paint prep and then get ready to primer it. So on this gym locker that I'm restoring here, taking all the paint off, and I'm using 80 grit sandpaper here. I've already done a few panels. So like I said, I'm using 80 grit sandpaper and I'm taking it down to bare metal. This is going to give the metal a tooth so that the primers and paints will stick to it. If it's too slick when you do this, then the primers and paints will not stick. And you'll get what they call delamination, so the paint will literally peel off. All right, after sanding for about 30 minutes straight, I got all the paint stripped off of this panel here, and it's ready for primer. One of the shelves was decent on the bottom, so I didn't bother taking the paint off of it. This side was all scratched up and scuffed up and it had rust spots and stuff, so I took it down to bare metal. So what I'm going to do on the back side here is I'm going to use a red Scotch pad here and scuff everything. So I'm going to lightly go over the whole thing and just scuff everything. And we're just going to give a little bit of a tooth to the top of the paint surface so the primers will stick to it. So we'll scuff this all up. We'll scuff this side back up one more time with the Scotch pad. We're going to go over it with some Duplicolor prep spray here. We're going to clean everything and wipe everything down with the prep spray. So when it comes to painting, one of the biggest things is the prep. So no matter if you're spraying with a gun or an aerosol can, the prep is key. So if you're working on a bare metal surface, a prep spray like this is great for cleaning bare metal surfaces. But if you're painting on something that's already been freshly painted, this right here may damage the surface. So it's more to get in the pores and deep clean it. For something like that, you could use the multi-purpose foaming cleaner or the wax and degreaser for a painted surface and just get it that nice and clean. But this right here is more for that bare metal, get down in there and get all the grease and grime out of the pores of the metal. So you would want to use something like this. I'm also wearing gloves. I'm not touching the panel so my oils in my hands don't go onto it and cause flash rusting. All right, so I got the shelf all scuffed up and ready to go. I'm going to use the prep spray here. I'm just going to spray some of this onto a lint-free cloth here and just wipe down the panels and get all the grease and grime and dirt and dust off of it. You may use a couple of these and do this a couple times, like 3 or 4 times until there's like no more of that dirt on there. So we'll just do this a couple times. Since this is down to bare metal, we're going to be using Duplicolor's self-etching primer. Self-etching primer is a great sealer, so it'll prevent any rust from coming back. It also bonds to bare metal really well, so that's what we're going to be using on this project. I'm going to give the can a good shake, and then we'll start priming. So now it's kind of tacked up. You can kind of see the dullness to it. So now I'm going to put a little bit more of a wet coat on it. I'm going to start with the edges first, and then I'm going to lay a pretty decent layer of primer across the top, and this will be the final coat. So I'm going to do it's going to give it a nice even, and I got about a 70% overlap, and this is going to give me a nice even finish. So even though I'm painting outside, this stuff dries so fast that it doesn't give it a lot of time for dirt and debris and dust to settle down on it. So that's a really nice thing about this. So I got a panel here that I sprayed a couple months ago, and as you can see, it's been sitting around and something got on the surface. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some 400 grit sandpaper and scuff sand this whole thing and reprime it. All the dirt and grime is off of it, and then it gives me a nice flat surface to redo this. So I'm going to quickly redo this real quick and get some of the stuff off. All right, now that I got it sanded off and cleaned up, just you can use some compressed air and blow it off really good. Now I'm going to swap out to a fresh pair of gloves so that way they're nice and clean. We're going to use a little bit of grease and wax remover, pour it directly onto a lint-free cloth, and just wipe the panel down. Then it'll be prepped and ready for primer. So like I said, I'm just going to pour a little bit of the wax and degreaser right onto a rag and just wipe it down and give it a good bath. And this will remove all the grease and grime and dust particles. Maybe wipe it down a couple times with a dry towel after I'm done here, and just make sure it's good and clean. So a technique I've developed over the years for doing small paint projects like that is buy these clear shower curtains, and then you can hang them on your different things like this, and you can build out a paint booth real quick and make it a paint booth. So like I said at the beginning of the video, this is the learning process for me. So one of the things I learned is when I was spraying with these aerosol cans, as the cans got below halfway when you're spraying horizontal like this, there's less pressure in the can so that you can get some spitting and splattering. So what I did was hang my panels vertical like this, and now with it hanging, I could spray with the can vertical, and it created more pressure in the can, and I got an even flow out with it like that, and I got less spitting expander, and I used up all the can. Also, I don't know if you can tell or not, but I'm outside and it's a little bit windy, so that's going to affect your spray pattern. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this project and move it to the inside of my shop, and I'm going to spray inside my shop. That way I got a little bit less dust, and I got a little bit more control of the weather, so I'm not going to have so I have a consistent spray pattern. So those same shower curtains that I talked about building a paint booth works great for covering up stuff that you don't want to get overspray on. So to reduce the dust in my shop, I decided to mop it and get the floor wet. The funny thing is this mop bucket here, my coworkers gave this to me. They thought it would be a funny thing, so haha, jokes on them. Since I'm working inside the shop, I use a mask. So I use a respirator like this, made by 3M. But what I wanted to share with you is when you're not using them, if you store them in plastic bags like this, when you go get your respirator, they're always clean. And if you restore your extra filters and stuff like that, if you store that in plastic bags also, everything's nice and clean. So since I scuff sanded it, I blew it off with some compressed air. Now I'm just gonna wash it down, wipe it down with some of the with the multi-purpose foaming cleaning spray here, and just get all the dust and sanding dust and everything off of it, off the panel. Make sure it's nice and clean. I'm happy with this. This is cool. Masked up. Now we're gonna prime up. I've been shaking this can for a little bit. So the experts always say to start with the edges first. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do the edges and then so I let these dry for 24 hours and I'm out here in the shop the next day and I'm touching this and there's like a little film on it. So what it is it's the overspray that was in the air. It has settled down onto the panel and there's like a light dust on it. And if I wipe my hand across it, you can actually see it. So with the multi-purpose foaming cleaner, I'm gonna spray this on here. That surfaced nice and clean, but it's just laid on top of it. So this will take that off and then it'll give it a nice slick feeling. All right, for this next step, I'm super excited because we're gonna be spraying actual color on it. So to keep this project simple, we're gonna be using Duplicolor's paint shop paints. I am not a paint expert in any means, so Duplicolor makes it super simple. It's you pour it straight from the can right into your gun and it's ready to shoot. It's a lacquer-based paint and there's no complicated mixing of the paints and stuff like that. So basically what you want to do is you just want to read the instructions on the can and find out what type of gun that's required for it. It's pretty simple. So you would just find on here what tip is required for whatever product you're using. So if it's either a primer or a paint like that, and they'll tell you on here. You just want to mix the paint up really good, give it a good shake. The experts say that a couple minutes of actual stirring is best, and you just pour it straight into your gun and then fire up your compressor. Set your gun up to pressures on the cans that I have the recommended pressures that are needed. So they make everything really simple. So you basically the only thing you want to know is when you're setting your pressures up, your regulator up, you want to make sure you do it with the trigger pulled. That way you're setting it up to actual spraying pressure. You want to have at least a 30-gallon compressor and for small parts like that, and you should be good to go. Only other thing product-wise you'll need to get is a good strainer. So Duplicolor offers the strainers too. So you would put your strainer here and you'd pour your paint through the strainer, strain it out into your cup. So right here on the can it tells you the PSI. It wants you to shoot it at 25 to 30 PSI. And then you want to use a 1.4 tip for this particular paint. I'm using the Championship White to paint the cabinets. So I'm pretty excited about this next step, is actually putting color on and then getting it assembled. So here we go. So I got the paint stirred up, mixed up, and in the gun. Now I'm gonna blow everything down and wipe everything off one last time. And then I'm gonna put what I call a dust coat on. So this is like a thin layer on it, and then let it tack up a little bit. And then we're gonna put a second coat on, a wet coat, a thicker coat. I'm trying to remember what the experts say, and they want you to spray the edges first. I guess the overspray onto the panel, kind of helps the paint stick to it. So spray the edges first, and then you can lay your wet coat on top of that. One of the things I had to do, especially when I was spraying the bigger panels, was to keep an eye on the compressor and the air pressure and make sure that didn't drop and it stayed consistent. Sometimes I had to wait on the compressor. So it's worked out okay with small panels and parts like this, but if I'm going to spray my car, I'm definitely going to upgrade my compressor and get a larger compressor. Some of the things I was learning as I was doing this was, hose control, where to hold the hose, how to hold the hose. I played with a few different techniques and stuff like that. Also planning everything out. So planning out all where the parts are going to dry, all that stuff took into play. And I definitely struggled with that a little bit. Door I painted roughly 6 months ago or so, and it got a few scratches from just being moved around and stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of 400 grit sandpaper, and I'm going to kind of feather out the scratches in a couple spots, and I'm going to give it some touch-up paint. So I'm just going to feather out the scratches a little bit. Feather it out. I'm going to use some duplicolor wax and grease remover here and give it a good wipe down. And then I'm going to use a little bit of some more of their engine paint. It's the exact same color, the same color I used about 6 months ago. And I use this because it's chemical resistant and stuff, so there's chemicals and stuff going to go in this. I got mechanic greasing hands, so I'm going to give this a wipe down, and now I'm going to give this a good little spritzer light coat on it and just blend it all in and see how it looks. So I scuffed it and gave it another coat on there just for an extra coat, that way, because this is going to take the most brunt of the use. So adding a second coat was probably a good idea. So I just masked off this. When I originally did this was all taken apart. So now this is ready to go back together. Well, I can honestly say I have learned a ton about gun control, planning everything out, timing everything. There's a lot to learn when you're painting. I'm so thankful that I'm doing a project like this and not learning on my project car here where, where the paint really matters. So one of the things I learned is the foam pad here gets really tacky when you start spraying on it. So I've been adding layers of tape between swapping out my parts. So I have a fresh layer of tape on top of it, so I don't have any stickiness from the fender stand here. So I got fresh tape on here, so I transfer my parts over, and that seems to be working pretty good. So now we got all of our parts painted, and now we're ready to go back together and reassemble it. The paint came out amazing. All right, we got all the panels painted, and now it's time to reassemble the locker. This was pretty much just held together with pop rivets, so we're going to put it back together with pop rivets. Fit the back on, so now we just need to rivet it down, and then we'll stand it up and put the door on. There she goes, she's looking good. Now we just gotta slap the door on and we can load her up. All right, the door is mounted. Now is the moment of truth. Does it latch and work? So it latched, and oh, it doesn't work. That's great. Oh, there it goes. Just a little stuck. There we go. So you gotta lift up on it. And hey, yes. Now we can load this bad boy up. So when I did this project, I took it all apart and I painted everything, all the mechanicals on the inside, everything. So everything is really fresh and cool. So I got the paint locker loaded up with my body fillers, my spray guns, my mask, all my paint supplies here, and sandpapers here on the top shelf. The things I learned is I definitely don't have enough space. The more space you have to set things out, lay things out, plan things out, the better you're going to be. So that's one thing I've learned. So on my next paint project, I'm definitely going to plan that out. I made some mistakes. I got paint spills, but that's the process. That's exactly what the point of this project was to learn how to paint, learn how to develop my skills, gain that experience working with paints and stuff like that. So pretty cool. So I would highly recommend you guys checking out Duplicolor and picking up yourself some paint projects and just get out there in the shop and start doing it. I'm Brian Eslick from How to Automotive. I'd like to thank you guys for watching. I'd like to thank Duplicolor for sponsoring the video, and be sure to subscribe to the channel for more cool stuff like this.